All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming back. This is the Northwest Nightmares Film Fest podcast. My name is Alan Cunningham. I am the festival organizer. I'm also the technology coordinator at Northwest Access Television. That's the public access station in St. Albans. We're the ones who put on the Northwest Nightmares Festival every year. And I want to take a quick moment and thank our sponsors for this year, Vermont Surrogacy Network and Twigs Restaurant in Vermont. If you guys get a chance, check those folks out. All right. So today, my guest is somebody who has entered into 4 years worth of Northwest Nightmares and is a treasure trove of information and just great overall film technique. I'd like to introduce Brent Campbell. Brent, how are you?
Alan, I am excellent. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you find your way to Northwest Nightmares.
Sure. I think ever since I was a kid, I've always had a fascination with telling stories. As a kid, I was into forcing my brother to watch my magic shows, and it was all about some type of illusion in storytelling. And then that kind of gravitated into this period. When I was a kid, I got an 8mm film camera from the local drugstore, and then I started doing my own filming my own opening credits. So I would try to replicate the Halloween opening with a pumpkin, or the Alien opening, with the patterned floor and the egg and stuff. So I was probably into storytelling from a very early age. And then my dad, when I was younger, he took me to my first horror film, which was The House That Dripped Blood, and we saw that in the theater in Barrie. And then after that, it was Willard. And then it just kind of gravitated after that. And I just, for some reason, I really gravitated to that type of storytelling. And enough so that I originally wanted to be a film director, but I ended up getting a degree in video production. And so I felt like I was able to get some of the skill set I needed to tell the story. And then years went by, and it was 2016, and I was living in St. Albans, and I heard about the Northwest Nightmares Film Festival. And I literally had the biggest smile on my face when I learned about it, and instantly got tickets. Was so glad I was able to get tickets. Went, and I sat in that theater through all of the films, just enraptured by everything. And I remember it was this feeling of all my worlds coming together, because I sat there when it was over and I thought to myself, I can do this. I can actually write or create or find a story, put it up on the big screen, and let it be seen by people. The movie theater to me was always a place of comfort. You go, you sit in the dark, and you're told these stories, and it was just to be able to be in the driver's seat, if you will, and have the opportunity to have a story that you come up with shown on such a big screen in front of an audience was just it was like finding gold, really. So after 2016, I went home, I think that night probably, and just started writing story ideas and working through it, finding some folks that wanted to share that little dream with me. And the next year we entered, and we've had the opportunity to do so ever since, and just having a really great time with it.
Wow, that's awesome. That's such a great story, because I know exactly that feeling of when you stumble across something and you're like, that's it. That's kind of that's the box I've been looking to get into. You know what I mean? You don't realize it until you see it, but it's like that. That's short form, but it gets to be on the big screen. I love the festival for the low barrier of entry for people to see their creations or themselves on the big screen. It's such that, to me, that's the biggest draw for the film festival. And I was talking about it last week, or a couple weeks ago on the podcast, about how funny it is just to sit in a movie theater where you've watched all of these stories, Star Wars and et cetera, and horror movies, and then you look up and there's a movie, a very nice looking movie that is your neighborhood. It's Taylor Park. It's the Bay, St. Albans Bay. It's so fantastic. It's just it's such a great time. And that's such an amazing story too. I
mean,
love how
it really is a party, you know. It's like ever since I was a kid, looking, you know, you're sitting in your chair, you're looking up at that big screen, you know, and so here you're sharing the same screen where you saw The Exorcist or The Omen or Halloween or, you know, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, whatever you saw, you know, now is your chance to like share that screen with, you know, legends, so to speak. So it's more exciting and more of a party, I think, than anything.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you going to see The House That Dripped Blood when you were a kid. Yeah. So what are some of your other favorite horror movies? Do you have a favorite genre or a particular director that you're really, really fond of?
I do. And sorry if I jump around here, but it's because
that's right.
It's because it changes frequently, you know, like any kind, you know, like comedy for a genre. The comedy is different today than it was 40 years ago. And so I think horror genres also change and adapt to new and future generations. And so when I grew up, it was primarily in the 80s. So looking back, I had the opportunity to see Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, The Exorcist, The Omen, the originals, all in the theater. And so looking back, I really cherished that opportunity to have been able to do that. So I think as I was growing up, Friday the 13th was a big one. It was, you know, you'd come out of the movie and then you'd count the years until the next one would come out, and then you'd be all excited, and then you'd go and you'd love it. And so I think early on, the slasher probably was a very available genre to me. And so I went to as many of those as I could. And then I started getting into a genre that I don't even know what it's called, but it's storytelling. It's storytelling. It's more of a drama. And so like some of the examples I have are like the movie Poltergeist, where it really just starts off as a family moving into a house, you know, and then the little clues and the little horror moments start to come, you know, from behind. In The Exorcist, it's really about a relationship between a mother and daughter, and then these things start happening. You know, or one of my favorites lately, Midsummer, where it's really about, you know, in the beginning, it starts off innocent enough with all these friends going to visit a friend's family. And so I'm really appreciative now of the genre where they're human stories, but then they just start to take a very dark turn, and all these clues are started to lay out in front of you. And it's more of a tension build, a suspense build, as opposed to a blatant, like what they used to call body count, like, you know, with the slasher film. So it's different, but for me now, those really, I love the stories where I have time to meet the characters, empathize with the characters, understand their shortcomings, and then see them in situations that might be paranormal or just horrifying, or situations they did not ask for, and how they deal with those, and then just let the horror unfold. Like The Conjuring is one that comes to mind as well. Although now, lately, I'm finding I'm gravitating more towards the found footage genre, because every time I see a found footage film, I kind of have this feeling of, oh, that might be possible. I might be able to do something like that. So with this far distant eye on ever doing like a feature, possibly, I think I'm looking to the found footage genre to be able to do that, because I'm a believer that if the story is solid and the characters are strong and you can empathize with them, it doesn't matter if it's shot on like an iPhone or, you know, a Betamax camera from 20 years ago. It can still play, and it can still capture audience's attention. That's my philosophy anyway.
Absolutely. If the story's good, if you care about the characters, you can apply whatever filter you want to the visual of that story, but the story and the characters are still going to come through. But it's going to be scary though, you know. Those are fantastic. Those are fantastic answers. Thank you, Brent. And so, Brent, your films have such a great and unique look and style to them. I got to imagine that's got to be kind of time consuming. What do you typically spend for like a production cycle for a Northwest Nightmares movie?
Yeah, and sorry if I jump around on this one too, because this is a question that I've been thinking about, and it just has a lot of different aspects to it. So I'll try to narrow it down into like a cohesive thought. I would start off by saying overall, we probably spend about 40% of the time writing the story and storyboarding it, 40% editing it, and then probably 20% of the time is literally like that we're on the set or we're on location and filming. Our goal has been to try to do all the footage in like one day or as much as we can. And we're pretty close to that. So normally we'll like schedule a weekend and then we'll do it on a Saturday. But then if there's an outstanding shot or something, I'll just pick that up myself, or we'll schedule a time that we can focus just on that. But I would say most of the time goes into the thinking of it and storyboarding it and then editing. Yep. Yeah. And the visual aspect of it really feels, and the reason I think that it's hard for me to answer on this one is it feels kind of organic to the whole process, if you will, where I really look at the camera as a character just as much as any of the actors that you might see on the screen. And so what I mean by that is, as filmmakers, we're continually telling a visual story. And so whether, if you have an outside scene and you light it with a blue light to make it look like moonlight, but yet you can see everything, versus a single light and everything is in darkness except for what you're focusing on, that's two totally different feels. And I always like to think that the scariest things are the things that you don't see that lurk there in the dark. So sometimes I struggle and I'm like, well, we don't have to light the whole scene blue. If the character has a flashlight, let's just see what's in the flashlight beam, and then we'll put ourselves in the character's shoes, and so, and I always feel like anytime you do a pan or a dolly shot, the objective of that is to reveal something. And so, if the camera's behind your shoulder, let's say, and you're looking away from the camera, and then I'm dollying backwards from you, I want something to come into the frame that we, the audience, can see, but you can't. And then all of a sudden, there's some like suspense built there. So I really try to look at any of the visual, any of the camera moves as part of telling the story, and really try to be as visually rich as possible. There are exceptions. Sometimes you just need an establishing shot, or a shot with some exposition on it. And sometimes those are pickup shots that we'll do once we're editing, and it's like, oh wow, we really could use a picture of a sign, or we really need a picture of something. So we'll go do that. But I really try to weave the visual into the story just as much as a character or dialogue or costumes or anything like that.
All right. Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, it shows in your movies how much pre-planning goes into that. Probably a lot of people probably think that it's much more time spent filming than it is, writing it or editing it. But it's really about, if you can get all of that work done, to film a 10-minute movie in one day requires a lot of time beforehand just to get everything set up before you're ready to roll. So I really commend you on that.
And that's what I've learned. It's like and I heard it from some of the other folks on the show too. It's like the more you do it, the more you learn. And so, when there's people, if I'm just the only person on a location, I could take all day. But as soon as there's 2 or 3 other people there, all of a sudden I have this anxiety about wanting to be responsible for their time as well. And so I do as much pre-work as I can, so when we're on set, we're focused and we can just keep going, and then we're not like keeping people there late or however, just to be respectful of people's time. The other thing that I've learned over the years is to just kind of relax. It's like the scripting process I keep very loose now. Sometimes I might storyboard even before I script anything, just so I can focus on the visuals and not on like a descriptive single word for how I describe that tree or whatever.
Yep.
And so I really just try to be prepared. So the production side of it just can be as quick as it can be, and we can get what we need.
All right. Well, Brent, what advice would you give to somebody if they were interested in participating in the Northwest Nightmares? Say a youngish, let's say probably, somebody younger, high school age, or maybe somebody who, myself, I was in, media production 20 years ago and never really dusted off the skills until coming back into this, this role with Northwest Access. So, what advice would you give to somebody who's kind of maybe on the fence or is curious about it? What's kind of the one piece of advice you give them to get them over the hump?
Well, this is something, that I learned over time is really just to do it. And so, whatever, don't let fear stop you. Don't let apprehension stop you. Don't feel like, oh, I can't do that, because you really can, and every film, maybe you're telling a vampire story, but the voice that you give to it, the vision that you give to it, is what will make it unique and different from all the others. So please give us, the audience, that gift of being able to see your work. Don't hold it under a bushel. Don't hold it inside. Please get it out into the world, because people like me want to see it. So I think that's it. And Northwest, I refer to you guys as Northwest Nightmares, but you have all the equipment, so it's like that shouldn't be a barrier for anyone.
Exactly.
And if it's like somebody that needs people to work with them, that shouldn't be a barrier either, because I've learned through this festival that there's a ton of people out there that want to get involved and do something. Some people are just waiting to be asked. So, please be the voice that brings these people together and just have fun with it. That's really what it's about.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brent. I hope everybody, gets an opportunity to go check out some of the past Northwest Nightmares film festivals. They're online. Just search up Northwest Nightmares and check out some of Brent's work. He's done some amazing, fantastic films. And actually, on our channel station, Xfinity 1079, or if you just go to northwestaccess.tv, every Friday night leading up until this coming Northwest Nightmares, I'm replaying all of the old film festivals. So I think this Friday is the one from 2015, and that'll be airing at 10 o'clock. And you can watch that online live if you want. It's also on demand. But it's kind of a fun little thing we're doing for Northwest Nightmares and trying to get the word out there. All right. So for my guest, Brent, thank you so much.
Alan, thank you. It was a pleasure. Always.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brent. And everybody else, we will see you on October 25th or October 28th. Until then, stay spooky.